Hi YouTube, back again. This time we're going to talk a little bit about the hydraulic setup on this this Cockshutt 40 that I'm restoring, refurbishing, whatever the right nomenclature would be. So this has this is one of two configurations that you can get on this tractor for with or without, basically with or without hydraulics. So there's a simpler version of this that, if you can imagine this tank and riser boss were not there. It's just essentially like a big piece of boilerplate. It's like a big flat plate. That's what I would call like your base setup. Or in this case, luckily I had a grandfather that was cool enough to get the upsell, and he got hydraulics. So it's a pretty simplistic setup, but it's also very cool. So the way it works is, on the main shaft in your engine, there's a single shaft that goes straight from your engine all the way to the back into a gear that drives a gear set for your power takeoff. On that shaft, there is another gear that's on that's basically allowed to slip and mesh, depending on whether you have this pump handle in one of two positions. Okay, so when I turn it in, it's got a little lever that pushes that whole gear set back and meshes the teeth with the teeth that are on the pump, that actually mounts to the bottom of this this very large steel or cast iron plate. So once you engage it, you have to do it. Obviously, it's not synchronized and all that other good stuff. They're just straight cut gears. You got to have your tractor off to do it. But before you start up, you would engage it, and that would engage your pump. So once you start your engine, you're pumping oil. So inside this large tank, this is basically your reservoir with a breather and a fill hole. Let me pop this off. Show you the guts. Inside the guts, there is like a valve body. So it's actually a three-way valve. There's 3 ports. So directly underneath of where these 2 bolts are, that's where the pump mounts. It's just like your typical gear rotor oil pump. It's got a pickup right here. So normally there's like this small screen element on here. Pretty typical of most hydraulic pump systems. There's a screen that bolts on there, so this whole thing is flooded in 10 weight oil or 20 weight, whatever type of oil you're using for hydraulic fluid. And that would be like your suction side. Okay, so it sucks in through the pump, discharges through this casting manifold on the bottom side, and there's 3 ports. It goes up through your valve body, and depending on the position of your lever on the valves, right, you'll have fluid flow one way, neutral, fluid flow the other way. So when you're in the neutral position, it's basically just pumping all the time, and it's just going to discharge out of a number of different orifices in the valve body, and just basically cycles inside the tank. When you engage it, so you would have this would be the lift, or the drop down position, right? So it's not detented. So you'd operate it down, and then if you want it up, you lift it up, and it's actually got a catch on it, which is kind of cool. I think they call this like an unloader. So it's got its own separate adjustable let's say pressure unloader valve in here. So as soon as so you lift it up, and as soon as it senses whatever that preset value is, it's like something around 1400 psi, I think. Once it senses that, which would be like a hard stop, instead of deadheading your pump, it just unloads it and it kicks it out and kicks it back to neutral. Pretty neat. It also has its own, as every hydraulic system should, it has its own pressure relief valve, so that's also adjustable. There's like a little pipe plug with a hole drilled into it. So there's spring loaded check ball kind of deal. So that's the typical, you know, three-way valve. It's pretty simplistic compared to some of the valves that you get on some of the modern loader type tractors, but it gets the job done, I guess. Grandpa used this primarily as quick disconnect power. So he had originally he had like a breakaway coupler, and he would have used this to power lift his plow. You know, so you can lift it up and drop it hydraulically. So he had the, you know, like a bracket with a breakaway setup, and then you just run your lines up from your plow, hook them up, and you're on your way. So it's really just got two outputs. It's got the I would call that the business end, so that's like the lift output. That's a 1/2 inch pipe thread. And then it's got the return or the smaller side, which is 3/8 pipe thread. And then it's got a really lousily located drain fitting, which in this case you can see the large heat distortion mark there. I've been trying to get that sucker off because it's one with the tractor now. So my intent is to get rid of that nasty old pipe plug, and I've got like another short piece of 18-inch hose that's got a nice little drain fitting on the bottom, so I can plumb that in permanent and then run it down here. So if I want to drain the oil, I don't have to douche the whole back into my tractor with it. But it's also on this other plate that I mentioned. It's also got these. It's got these these kind of sleeves that can receive a cross shaft, so you can do like three-point lift work, which is very cool, but very hard to find for this particular tractor. I guess M&W might have made one version of it, but they are really hard to find. So I ended up making my own. Maximum effort. But essentially that's discussion for a different video. But essentially what I have is I had to make up a pretty stout top link bracket that basically wraps around the whole PTU gear set and clutch pack. It's just nothing more than a big A-frame looking bracket here that's got your adjustable top link pin positions, and it goes in right behind these seat brackets, so it's super beefy. And there's a shaft that I had to have fabricated, very large shaft that I had to have fabricated that goes all the way through here, and it's got some features on the end where you have your lift links, and then all of that it's also got like a sector that comes down and mounts to a cylinder that would live right under here, and you can kind of see the C-shaped, or the outline here of where that cylinder would live. So there's another box bracket that I had to make up at the front there that the cylinder bolts into. Pretty large cylinder actually. That bolts into there, and it would just basically move in this direction, and it moves the sector, so that way you can get your rock shaft to lift your 3-point hitch. So more to come on that, but pretty cool flexibility in design here. I've also actually procured another valve too, just to make this a little more usable. I like using hydraulic top link because it gives you one more degree of rotational freedom on certain implements that appeals to me. So in this simple setup where I've got kind of a no place to go, I'm kind of restricted using the valve that is made for the application. This just, as I mentioned, this just does up, down, right? So it's a three-way valve, but you really only get two ways of action on it. I can either get fluid flowing this way and returning this way, or fluid flowing this way and returning this way. That's it. So when when you want to separate circuits, you got to add another valve. So external to that, I've got over here a sweet little selector valve, right? So I take my 2 circuits and I turn them into 4 circuits. So I can effectively run 2 different cylinders just with this, select 2 different circuits driven off of one feed. So my 2 hookups go into this guy, and again, you get flow one direction, flow the other direction, and then based on what position you've got this guy in, you'll either feed one cylinder, which would be the lift cylinder, or the other, which would be the top link cylinder. So pretty cool. I just got to figure out how to mount this guy, and again, crap ton of hoses, right? So I went from a 2 hose setup to a 6 hose setup. Maximum effort. But yeah, overall, I'm actually kind of excited to try this thing out. I never ever saw it work when I was a kid. I've only seen this tractor working once in my lifetime. I think I was like 5 years old. It scared the crap out of me. I've never seen it work, but I'm really eager to get it going. There is actually some literature for this. So those that are interested, I'm a big original lit fan. And luckily my grandpa was like super frugal, as most of ours are. He kept everything, so I've got his original manual. I don't think it was for this tractor. He had it before. He had this one. He had an E4, which is essentially the same thing. It's just Cockshutt made the Model 40, and they sold them to some kind of a customs broker, or some type of a firm. I think it was National Farm Machinery Co-op, and they just painted them orange and called them an E4, but they're essentially the same tractor. But these are cool because they got every little piece of information you could ever want, except for obviously torque specs. But I mean, come on, this is great. Beautiful old exploded diagrams, and they have the original parts list for everything. So I was lucky enough to find one of these for the hydraulic system as well, which details how all this stuff works and how to adjust it. So kind of hard to find. It was, at least for me, it was kind of hard to find. So if there's anybody out there that's doing a restoration and you're interested in this kind of stuff, and you like you'd like to have some more reading or some more knowledge, drop a comment, let me know, and I would be happy to PDF this stuff and put it out there for everybody, because I had to pay for this. I friggin' hate paying for stuff that should be just online. And again, there's other shop manuals. This one was actually not too bad. This one from IT, I think you can get those pretty much at any tractor store. This wasn't bad. There's a lot of the same photographs and stuff come from the stuff that's in the original. And the only thing I don't like about these is they always leave you hanging short on certain things, right? So some of these are like really in depth on engine stuff. Some of them are really in depth on, let's say, maybe the body components. But they're never just for one model. This is, so you're constantly trying to fight. What am I looking at here? Well, where's the 40 stuff? Oh, well, is that 40 or is that 30? And they, just how they generally format them kind of sucks. But again, good information. So if you're doing a restoration, get you one of these. And if you don't have one, obviously I can't reproduce this, but I can definitely reproduce those guys if you're interested. Just drop me a comment. All right, that's it for today. Hopefully that helps you guys. And I'll talk to you soon.